Hello, everybody. I hope that everybody's doing well and is staying safe. I am coming to you from Houston, Texas. It's a little bit hot, but we're expecting a cold front. So everybody, and cold front in Texas means 75 degrees. So we're expecting good weather coming. So anyway, I hope you all doing well today. Today I'm going to talk about how we can support young students in their social and emotional and behavioral development, and can provide a support for them in these current times in which we're all trying to provide support and help for each other. So the agenda that I'll be following today is I'll talk a little bit about the challenges that we're facing and some of the challenges that were occurring before our current situation that kind of pointed out the need to support our young students as we're getting them ready to engage in school. Then I'll talk about some of the recommendations from some of the professional groups, as well as the recommendations that we have come up with. And within those recommendations, to focus on providing early identification of behavioral issues, using a multi-tiered support system to support young children who have behavioral challenges. And then I will share a system on how to provide proactive social skills for these students, for all students, at kind of a tier 1 level. So to start with, and this is some information that we pulled prior to our current situation within the pandemic, that we can see that there was a definite need to support young children between the ages of birth and 5, because approximately 15% will experience some sort of social emotional problem that will impact their development and their development in being ready for school. Of less than 1% of those students, that 15% are actually identified. And another study found that between 80 and 97% of children 3 to 5 years old need some sort of behavioral health services, and they don't receive those services. All right. Also, in some research that was done by Gillum and her colleagues, she found that again, these are from prior to our current situation, when young children were in preschool, that children in preschool were 3 times as likely as their K-12 cohorts to be expelled or suspended from a preschool. So that suspension, while we know is too often heavily used in our K through 12 grades, was even more heavily relied on at preschool for those students who were experiencing behavioral challenges. Okay, and that 1 in 200 students were being suspended at least one time, and that 1 in 500 students were being suspended more than once. Okay, let's see if this, all right. And that we know that behavior problems in preschool lead to the development of future problems and mental health challenges, and that problems stemming from persistent disruptive behaviors extend into adolescent and adulthood, and that early attention related behavioral issues also impact academic performance as well. And now, in our current situation, in which we have all had our lives disrupted because of the pandemic, we know that the pandemic has triggered many mental health issues, not just for us, not just for children 12 K through 12, but also for younger children as well, children that we would serve in preschool and early childhood programs. And so the current situation within the pandemic adds to the need for us to identify these issues and help support young children based on the experience, the traumas and stressors that they have been currently experienced as they're returning to preschool and early childhood centers. All right, the CDC investigated some of the challenges that young children are facing, and in the handout, if you click on the link on the title, that'll take you a link to the report that they have provided, which identifies some of these challenges, not just for young children, but also other children, older children, and then teens and adolescents as well. But we'll focus on some of the challenges that the COVID-19 has and the disruption that is caused in our lives that have impacted young children. So particularly, it has impacted, they changed their routines. When children are very young, their parents and caregivers, including extended family members and child care workers, provide them with daily caretaking routines that support their development and well-being. Disruptions in these routines and the sudden loss of the usual caregivers' attention due to physical distancing, due to changes in the types of supports or like daycare schedules and things like that, can be really traumatic for young children. Also, the break in the continuity of care or learning can pose a challenge for these children as well. Daycare and school closures mean that young children have to stay home with parents and caregivers who are juggling along with their increased stressors to also now provide supervision and learning opportunities for their children. Also, there's a break in the scheduled health care that children receive, and this can cause challenges for young children as well, so that social service closures may impact many young children's ability to receive the services like speech and health type services that they were previously receiving. Then also physical distancing can cause children to miss significant life events. So again, just an overall disruption of birthdays, vacation plans, births, and even in the worst case scenarios, funerals, will negatively impact these young children. And then finally, there's just this sense of not being safe that we've all experienced, and this adverse experiences can cause even more higher levels of trauma in young children. So these are all challenges that will impact some of the mental health issues and some of the behavioral issues that the young children are trying to cope with. All right, the American Academy of Pediatrics investigated the range of symptoms and signs associated with these types of behavioral reactions to stress. And what they found is the reactions to stress among children and adolescents has some universal themes, but there's also age and context dependent. So what they did in their report that I'm pulling some of this information for is look at young children, but then also look at adolescents and older children to see the impact. So infants and toddlers, the distress that occurs because of the disruption of their lives may result in problems with sleeping, problems with their feeding. They may have difficulty with separation and regress in their skills or become more irritable and socially withdrawn. Preschool children may demonstrate emerging behaviors akin to anxiety, obsessive thoughts, compulsions, depression, though, where they'll have similar symptoms to those that are being brought on by the disruption that of their lives that they're currently experiencing. And as they're returning to school, we need to be ready to support them. We need to work together with parents in order to provide them with the types of support that will help them overcome these challenges. There's some research that is already coming out, and here's a meta-analysis that was taken from studies done all over the globe. So not just studies done in America, but studies in India, Europe, South America, that were looking at the impact of quarantine and lockdown because of COVID-19. And it looked at studies involving young children, adolescents, and caregivers as well. And, you know, what some of the shared commonalities in terms of challenges and impacts between the studies are things like anxiety, depression, irritability, boredom, inattention, and an overriding fear brought on by living within these current times under COVID-19. And what they also found is in some of the studies, particularly studies that focused on young children who had pre-existing mental health issues like ADHD or autism, that there's a higher probability of worsening their behavioral symptoms because of the current situation. All right, another group that provided a report on children's mental health during the pandemic was the Child Mind Institute. And some of the questions that they were trying to answer were, what do we know about the pandemic and how it's affected children's health? What are some of the most common health challenges that children and adolescents experienced? What are some of the major risk factors for experiencing mental health challenges during the pandemic? And what do we know about the potential long-term mental health impacts? And then how can we reduce the mental health impacts of the next crisis? So how can we better prepare based on the information we're getting now? Overall, just some general findings was that about 70% of both children and adults reported some degree of mental discomfort, resulting loneliness, irritability, or fidgetiness due to the current pandemic. And then 55% of the children indicated that they felt more sad or depressed or unhappy, where in their study, the Institute survey study, they only found about 25% of the adults indicated that they felt more sad, depressed, or unhappy. So that the impact appears to be greater on younger children. All right, so based on some of that information, from previous to the pandemic, but then also during the pandemic, that indicated some of the challenges that we face when we want to support our young students in terms of helping them develop better coping skills, and also support them and to reduce any disruptive behaviors that may have developed out of it, or any mental health issues like anxiety or depression that may be, that they may be experiencing So we looked towards some of the major groups like the American Academy of Pediatricians, who suggest, and this is in a document previous to the current situation, they did a white paper on that on school health and some of the recommendations that they had, and the recommendations were that there should be put in place a system for positive development and prevention that targets all students and focuses on decreasing risk factors and increases developing coping skills and resiliency. That early identification of behavioral issues be done, and that the earlier that we can look and identify students who are at risk, young students who are at risk for mental health issues, the sooner that we can not only help provide them supports, but it also reduces, by addressing them early, it reduces the probability that in the future that more severe mental health issues develop. And that also that we have a system of care in place for students who are already identified with having mental health issues or disabilities, and that we provide them with individualized services. I think we all recognize as we reopen schools that our students who have been already identified as needing services were already receiving special education services or mental health treatments, that they again, like some of the studies suggest, that there are more is more likely to be impacted by our current situation, so that we need to take a deeper dive into some of the issues. And so we may have a student who we know had issues with aggression prior to the closure of schools, and now that as they're returning to schools, it's not only that we should support those issues, but that we also might look and see if other mental health issues or other challenges have crept in, and expand our supports for them. Based on the pandemic, the American Academy of Pediatrics also provided a updated guide of supporting the emotional and behavioral needs of children and adolescents during the pandemic, because of the that we should, what they suggest, or their recommendations is that we look at the social determinants of young children's health, that we provide screening and progress monitoring of our students' mental health and well-being, that we also look at the health and well-being of parents and caregivers, and that if we are returning to school in a hybrid situation where it still includes remote learning, that we take those things into consideration, that we look at the opportunity to use telepractice practices and other best practices that we may have developed on the fly during this current pandemic, and that we again need to focus in on children and youth who already identified as having special healthcare needs and as well as mental health needs, and not just rely on the information that we gathered previously, so that there may be other challenges and other issues that they are experiencing. All right, so previous to the pandemic, the National Center of Children in Poverty also had some recommendations to help better support students in early childhood programs, and that is to provide them better access to mental health, employ screeners and assessments and other processes to improve identification, early identification, to address the lack of training in developmental and early childhood issues in our educators who desire more training and more professional development in those areas, and then to also implement, programs, evidence-based programs that support behaviors. So based on that, these recommendations, we came up with kind of our own recommendations that incorporate much of what they're suggesting. And again, the first step is for early identification. So it's real important to provide support to these students early. So it's important to develop ways that we can identify those students who are at risk, that we can differentiate between their issues that they are finding challenging, and that we can use this information to hopefully predict future positive outcomes by using this information to help guide the selection of interventions and supports. So the second part of our second recommendation is, after early identification, is to use a multi-tiered behavioral support system to provide a continuum of supports that allow children to receive the help they need at the help they need at their specific level of needs. And then finally, to again be proactive in instructing these young students in social emotional learning, to provide them with some skills so that as we continue in the situation that we're in, that they develop the coping and resiliency skills that'll help better deal with the stressors and the traumatic experiences that we're all experiencing. All right, so in this next section, I'm going to talk about the first step in our process, which is early identification. Okay, so early identification can be efficiently and done by engaging in the use of universal screening of behavior. Effective screening should be accurate and provide valid and reliable information for decision making. And now with these screeners online, we are able to do a screening with the students present in school, but also we can engage parents and at home and provide information, especially when these students are engaging in learning activities outside of the school. So it's the preliminary process for identifying student social and behavioral strengths and areas of needs. It provides data to support observation, and it offers insight into students who may be struggling without any outward expression. And so basically, we are often able to identify those students who are engaging in externalizing behaviors, but often sometimes missed those students who are internalizing and engaging in behaviors that may indicate anxiety issues or depression, things that, again, that might be in greater prevalence coming out of our current situation. And again, the screening and the data that we get from universal screening of behavior provides the first step in deciding and implementing supports and interventions. All right, so the focus on the screening is to identify any maladaptive behaviors, any emotional issues, any delayed acquisition of pro-social and coping skills, And this is especially necessary in that we know that students who are at risk, identified at risk for emotional issues that left unsupported, that these can develop into more significant mental health issues and also impact negatively their academic performance. But while we are focusing on these challenges that the young students are experiencing, we also can use the results from universal screenings to identify some of the strengths that they may have, some of the adaptive skills that they may have that we can capitalize on when we're supporting them. All right, the measure that we use is the BASC Behavioral and Emotional Screening System, which is the BESS, which is part of the BASC system or BASC model of assessments and interventions and supports. The BESS is the universal screening part. It is a short screener that consists of 28 items, can be used with students between the ages of 3 through 18, and is designed to be used quickly and efficiently. It measures the behavioral and emotional risks of students. The forms include for young children, there's a teacher and a parent form. For students over the age of 8, there's a self-report as well. And here's an example of the BASC teacher form. Basically, those items are items like, does the student worry? Is the student well organized? Those are some of the basic items. And again, are looking at different externalizing, internalizing, and adaptive type behaviors. The teacher and the parent, so on the preschool edition of the BESS are asked to select if that behavior never occurs, sometimes occurs, often occurs, or almost always occurs. So again, there are the items that look at specific behavioral challenges, but there's also items that look at areas of strength. And what the BESS provides is a overall composite score or a behavioral and emotional risk index. It also provides subscales that are specific to externalizing behaviors like hyperactivity, aggression, and conduct problems, internalizing behaviors like anxiety, depression, somatization, and then also adaptive skills, functional skills, social skills, leadership skills. All right, here's an example of the BESS on the Q Global platform. The BESS is available on Q Global. It is also available on Review 360 and also on Ames Web Plus. You can see from the report for the individual student that there is a set of validity indexes where the F index indicates the severity of the rating. So if the teacher or parent is overly severe on terms of their rating of the student, this index will catch that. Also a consistency index and a response pattern index. And as we can see with this student, they were elevated in terms of internalizing their internalizing risk index. Some of the items, the reports do provide item level analysis as well. And some of the items like worries, is easily frustrated, is sad, is easily stressed, are some of the items that fall under that sub-index. All right, on Review 360, they provide a more group oriented assessment and reporting platform. So they provide group reports that will look at if you have a classroom of students in a preschool or a preschool grade level. And if you want to look at the information across that, you can get information to see how your students as a group are performing. And this is very helpful in guiding the types of interventions you may select to use, say at Tier 1 or Tier 2 in small groups. Review 360 also provides like a teacher roster report where you can go down and find the students who are at most at risk. So it's a red, yellow, green type of display, and you can see the scores for the particular students in the areas of the overall composite, the BERI, as well as externalizing, internalizing, and adaptive behavior. Also, if you're using both a teacher and a teacher and parent report, it would provide the information for each of the students based on the forms that you are using. All right, once we've gotten information and have identified those students who are at risk, then the next step is to use that information to help guide the supports and the interventions that we might want to use so that we can support the students and support these young children as they overcome the behavioral issues that they're presenting with. A framework that has been proven helpful for supporting students and providing strategies to improve their behavior is the multi-tiered support system, the MTSS framework. All right, MTSS behavioral support programs. There are many different ones out there. I'm sure most of us have experienced and have used them or have supported students that are being supported in those systems, and they share some common elements. And those elements are that establish a learning environment that is proactive and promotes positive behavior, foster effective behavior management in the classroom and at school-wide, incorporate the ability to identify students in need of additional or more individualized supports, include all teachers in supports of all students and address the needs of those individual students, and then provide a process for accurate and reliable progress monitoring, particularly for looking at how the students are doing, how the child is doing, but also to identify if the interventions or supports that we are using are effective. And I'm sure most of us have seen the pyramid or that we talk about using within a multi-tiered framework. But here is one from the Center of Social and Emotional Foundations for Early Learning. They suggest looking at the underlying, looking at Tier 1, not just in terms of supporting all of the students in terms of behavioral supports, but also in terms of nurturing and developing responsive relationships. So we want to provide supports, but also since we're working with younger children, we want to provide them with the skills that will help them develop better relationships with their cohorts, but also with adults as well. So the universal tier focuses on ensuring that the children have this caring and supportive relationships, that interactions with children should support engagement and help develop routines, promote conversational and communication activities, and use encouragement to advance skill learning and development. Also, the second tier then focuses on providing supports for children who need more precise interventions. Then at the third level, we want to provide more comprehensive and individualized interventions for children who are having chronic or severe behavioral challenges. All right, the Review 360 platform and system is the system that we use to provide behavioral support interventions, as well as provide access to the screening like the BEST that helps us guide those types of support. This system has been found to be effective within a multi-tiered support system framework. What it provides is expert behavior coaching. So it develops web-based instructional support and professional development for teachers to help them develop best practices in supporting young children. It provides interventions and strategies that can be used to support those young children who need more individualized supports. Also, it has a behavioral data management system that collects information that can be used in data-driven decision-making. And it also provides a system in which we can monitor students over time to see, again, that they're improving, but also to determine if our interventions and supports are effective. The first step within this, at tier 1, Review 360 provides a online professional development for educators that help them develop the best practices in managing their classroom well. We know that for early teachers or early career teachers, one of the issues that most cause them to leave, that they indicate cause them to leave the profession, is that they feel woefully underprepared to manage behavior within their classroom. So what this system helps do is provide online professional development to help teachers and other educators develop behavioral expectations within their classroom, develop procedures and routines, use reinforcement and acknowledgement, structure the learning environment, improve the interactions between students and also between teacher and student. And then one of the keys is develop effective correction procedures and strategies so that if there are challenges or disruptive behaviors in the classroom, the teacher will be able to address them and better support the student engaging in them without having to ask the student to leave to send the student to a principal's office or to an assistant principal, where we know that once that happens, the likelihood, again, from the data that I shared early on, of those students being suspended or removed from the instructional process is greater. All right, so here's an example of the online course for setting up behavioral expectations in the classroom. So basically these courses are self-paced learning coursework that the teacher can follow to learn the skills. It provides tip sheets, videos, things like that to help in developing, and in this case, setting up behavioral expectations. And also for specific behavioral issues that are challenging, the Review 360 provides similar online coursework, tip sheets, interventions, and things that will help address some of the behaviors that are common that we find, like clowning around in class, or bullying, or not being engaged, or aggravating others. Okay, so those are some supports that the system provides at tier 1 for that can be used in the classroom for all students. When we identify those students who need additional support, say at tier 2 or 3, we have a process that we use within Review 360, within the MTSS framework, that helps us identify first what the issues that these students are struggling with, some of the challenges that they are facing behaviorally. So it includes access to universal screening, also for a deeper dive into those issues if a student is at risk on the universal screening, and it provides access to behavioral assessments, and then also functional behavioral assessment. Then that data is collected, and it helps the teacher identify the problem behaviors. And then the system provides examples for replacement behaviors. Then the teacher can select the behavioral goals and objectives that will help replace those behaviors with those positive behaviors. This can be aligned with IEP objectives if necessary, and then also will involve selecting evidence-based strategies and interventions from the system, the Review 360 system, that is specific to the challenging behaviors that you want to include in the student's behavioral support plan. So basically, it's setting up an individualized behavioral support plan that can be used to support the student, so that we can address and improve their behavior and reduce the challenging behaviors they may be engaging in. If you remember back to the BESS, and again, Review 360, you have access to the BESS. You can take the scores of an individual student within Review 360, and in this case, a student is being challenged in the area of internalizing behaviors. We can create a plan directly from the information that is collected within the BESS. So it walks through identifying the areas of the behavioral issues that the student may be experiencing as indicated by the BESS. So in this case, there are emotional concerns. Anxiety is highly indicated as a problem area for the student, that they're fearful. This is, again, all information coming from the BESS. And then we can identify what we want, the positive behavior that we want to include in their behavior plan. And then it will create a behavior plan for them with that objective: use appropriate means to express fears. Then also it does provide a list of strategies that you can select to help reach that goal. So in this case, for this plan, it was developing coping skills and the pleasant activity planning intervention. And in those interventions, if you click on the I, it provides a tip sheet and a description of that intervention and a tip sheet about that intervention. Also a video on how to use that intervention. Then in order to monitor progress, we'll have a kind of a daily behavioral report card set up in this on the sheet, where we can score by period how well the student engaged in the positive behavior that we want them to engage in. And what through the our recent efforts at Pearson to provide information for educators that they can share with their parents, we have released many of the interventions and strategies that are on Review 360. And if you go to the Review 360 telepractice page, and in the handout, hopefully this link is hot so that you can click on it. you can access some of these interventions in terms of videos that are on YouTube that you can use in the classroom or also share with parents. All right, now in the last section of this webinar, I'm going to discuss some proactive social skills that we can instruct our students in to help them help them develop coping skills and resiliency and things like that as they continue to encounter stressors in their environment. So it's not only important to support students based on their behavioral and social and emotional needs, it is also important to provide all students, so this would be at Tier 1, with the proactive social skills that reduce the development of behavioral issues and mental health concerns. And then also help develop their emotional, social emotional strengths and their skills like resiliency, empathy, and communication skills. So some skills that have been found to support school readiness in young children that are social emotional skills include confidence, that a child will be able to participate in play with other children, that curiosity, that a child will take interest and will be able to take the initiative in or will take an interest in the world outside of themselves. Intentionality, the child will be able to take the initiative in activities. Self-control, we expect that students at age 3 or 4, from age 3 going on to 4, as they're becoming school ready, that they are able to sit calmly and listen to the teacher, that they have a degree of relatedness, that they will show concern for others or empathy for others, that they have the capacity to communicate, so that a child will be able to work through a conflict with other children, and that they'll be able to cooperate with other children, and that they can work in group activities. Okay, so when we talk about social emotional learning, one of the groups that we take our cues from a lot, because they've helped very much to collect the information and the research on social emotional learning. They've also provided effective best practices, a collection of best practices in assessment as well as in interventions and screening, is the group CASEL, where CASEL is the collaborative of academic and social emotional learning. What they've done is they've kind of provided an overview of social emotional learning. So we have a commonality in terms of discussing social emotional learning skills. And what they've done is kind of defined the 5 competencies, social emotional learning competencies. And those are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. Now, they've I'm trying to remember, it's probably been 8 to 10 years that CASEL first put this information out as defining the 5 competencies. Last year, given all of the situations that we've been experiencing, the additional stressors, the additional focus on things like equity and restorative justice, they most recently have kind of expanded their definition of their competencies, and expanded the application to go beyond just the schools, but also have the schools work with the community and with homes in order to promote positive social emotional learning. So from the at the Castle website, which I think I did provide the link, and hopefully it'll be active in the handout. There is a SEL roadmap for reopening schools, and one of the things they discuss is the definition of those competencies, and then kind of how those competencies have the definitions have expanded to address some of the current situations that we are facing. So like with self-awareness, it's the ability to accurately recognize one's own emotions. But then also, as in the current situation, self-awareness is critical to identifying and processing our complex emotions when things are uncertain and turbulent. So it needs to be a reflection of our strengths and understandings of our culture and our social identities, as well as those of others. So you can see, and if you review some of the changes, or not so much changes, but as an expansion of the definitions, how the Castle has taken those 5 competencies and made them even more applicable for all students, regardless of their background. All right, so when we're looking at teaching social emotional learning skills, we can rely on some, basic, tried and true type instructional processes like modeling and coaching, which are best used to introduce skills to students who have not exhibited the skill. So when we're first identifying a social skill that we want to teach our students, say staying calm with others, we want to start by modeling and introducing the skill, modeling that skill for those students. And once they get a hang of those skills, and as we're trying to develop them further, then we can engage in behavioral rehearsal and reinforcement. And as always, like with academic subjects, when we're teaching social emotional learning skills, we want to make sure that we practice and give the students plenty of opportunities to engage in those skills. All right. The program that we use is the SSIS SEL program, which is a social skills program and a social emotional learning program that includes not only screening and assessment, but also a class-wide intervention program, which is a SEL curriculum that can be used within a multi-tiered system, not only at the universal level, but the instructional process can be used to teach these skills in small groups as well. Okay, so the SIP has not 23, 30, just recently added the end of last year, 7 more. So there are 30 key skill lessons, 10 core units, and then 20 advanced units lessons. That these lessons are scripted lessons that also include digital resources. The instructional plan is very flexible and can be used with children ages 4 to 14. Some of the resources include skill cards, videos, role play cards to help in supporting the lessons and engaging the students again in more activities. And as I said in just the previous slide, we want to make sure that when we're instructing social emotional learning, that we give students plenty of opportunities at practicing the skills. All right, the core lessons in this SEP are able to be applied for students as young as 4 years old. And they include things like listening to others, other resiliency type building skills like asking for help, some skills that promote empathy and getting along with others in from diverse backgrounds, like getting along with others, things that are involved, self, control of oneself, like staying calm with others. These are all included as skill units within the SIP, the class-wide intervention program. And so, for example, getting along with others is one of the skills that are considered one of the core skills, and it's a relationship skill. And as you can see, each of the units is aligned with the CASEL competencies. So the getting along with others as a relationship skills is the ability to establish and maintain it helps establish and maintain healthy and supportive relationships. The key skill steps within getting along with others are to think about what you can do to get along with others, to do so and talk nicely with others, and to listen to others, to do something nice for others, to show that you can get along, and to show people that you're friendly and have a positive attitude. The skill provides, or this lesson provides skills that the students can use to get along with others, and so that they can cooperate with others. They can take turns in group interaction with others, and so that they can work well and play well with other students. So the outcome then is that they are being able to exhibit those social skill behaviors that indicate that they can positively interact with others. Now, the SIP has a particular instructional process that's built off of the process that I described earlier, where we start with the showing, coaching, modeling, and then we, as the student gains understanding of the skill, focus on practice and reinforcing. This 6-phase program includes telling, showing, doing, practicing, monitoring progress, and then generalizing. And I'm running out of time. What I have in each of these lessons has digital supports like cue cards, lesson plans, role play cards, and things like that to help support in teaching the students how to, in this case, get along with others. And those are all available digitally online to support the instructional process. And I was going to, but I ran out of time, I'm sorry, I was going to go through a quick lesson on how to get along with others. I am, again, sorry for my poor time management, but if you've had any questions and if they weren't answered, I will, or we will try to answer them and get back to you on them. I'm hopefully that you found this session beneficial, and I'm hope that you all have a good rest of your day.
Well, thank you, Chris, for sharing your expertise with us. Thank you to Nancy Castilleja and Shelley Hughes for Q&A monitor help. Thank you for your participation. Please leave your browser open as an action item list will pop up. Look for your certificate in your email within 2 weeks. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and this does conclude our webinar. Thank you.